Today's gospel passage is taken from passages in the Sermon of the Mount of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. I say taken passages because in the middle of this passage, Jesus teaches the disciples the Our Father. But Jesus is teaching here, and he's teaching something to the people about three of the great traditional practices of practically all world religions: charity to the poor, praying, fasting. And what does he have to say about these practices? He says, first of all, he says, don't do this to impress others. That's not the purpose of these practices. What is the purpose of these practices? It's not to impress others. Jesus says it's to draw closer to God, to draw in a more personal closeness to God. This is what these practices are meant to do. Well, let me just take one of them because this is daily Mass, and we don't have a lot of time. Prayer. What Jesus is saying, we don't pray to impress other people, and we don't pray to impress God, and we don't pray to get something from God. We pray to grow closer to God. There's many ways of praying, but I want to talk about the simplest, and I think Jesus has this in mind. I'm grateful to have learned this from my father. My dad, when he later years of his life, he worked in Pittsburgh, and he would commute, which would be about a 45-minute hour drive from our hometown. And he said he loved the commute. And he loved it because he said he would get in the car and he would talk to God. And he said this was the best time of the day for him. The simplest prayer is talking to God, having a conversation with God. Now, this is an incredible assertion. First of all, that God listens and that God cares. But if there's one thing Jesus is trying to get across in the Sermon on the Mount, is that God cares about us and God listens to us. It's a tremendous, unbelievable assertion. I mean, there's billions of people in the world, billions of people who've lived before us, and when I pray, God listens to me. That's an incredible assertion and an incredible belief. Talking to God is pretty easy. It's simple. We talk to ourselves all the time. In fact, people in the congregation here might now be talking to themselves more than they're listening to me. We're talking to ourselves all the time. Spend some of that time, no matter where you are, whether you're sheltering in place, whether you're with a family or someone, you can always enter the inner room of your head and talk to God. We talk to God all the time. When we do that, we draw closer to Him. There's much to say about these three great traditional practices, but they're all meant to draw us closer to God. May what I said today about prayer help you take some time today to simply converse with God. When you do, He listens to you and He draws closer to you.